Hello, precious mamas and mamas-to-be. Welcome to my mind-opening interview series with important authorities in the birth world. This is your host, Ilka B, with the Liberated Birth Movement, broadcasting from around the world. In this interview series, we're going to once again uncover myths, ask interesting questions, and get out-of-the-box answers. All right, welcome precious mamas. I'm super excited to have a very special lady on today, Marcia Lopez. I hope I say that name right. Marcia and I met a few years back in Southern California at a great workshop, Rachel Garcia's postpartum workshop. And Marcia is, besides being an incredible energy and awesome woman, she's also a body worker, and she specializes in helping women with their fertility. So welcome.
Hi, Ilka.
See the smile and that laugh already, like that's perfect. Thank you so much for taking your time today and to talk with me about some really interesting things. We're obviously the Liberated Birth Movement is all about pregnancy and birth, right? So how do we get to that point? I myself am turning 37 next week, and a lot of people say like this is a geriatric mom, and often moms over 30 or women over 35 are having issues getting pregnant, and it seems to be like a big topic in general nowadays. So please tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into this work and what you're really passionate about.
Awesome. Okay, so my background, I was born and raised in Los Angeles. My parents immigrated from Guatemala, so I'm first generation American. I've been interested in healing work since I was a kid. I think around the age of 11, I came across Reader's Digest books on yoga and meditation and things like that. And I was meditating and doing yoga since I was 11 in South Central Los Angeles.
A real yogi.
I'm a real yogi. But, it's kind of funny because despite the decades of practicing meditation and practicing yoga and all of that, it's not a personality makeover. I can still, be a jerk and not be punctual.
You're not holy. Is that what it is? I feel like that what people always think, like if you do yoga and you meditate, you're all of a sudden holy and you don't swear anymore and stuff like that. That's not happening.
No. I'm 40. I'm going to be 41 this year.
Damn.
So that's like almost 30 years of practicing yoga, and I think I swear more now than I did before. So what do you do? But I went to college for philosophy. I have a minor in dance. I love body movement, things like that. But somewhere along the lines, I really had to understand myself and understand my own healing journey in order to survive, in order to really be here on this planet right now. And that took me down the road of understanding women's health, because I had to really accept my own personal existence as a female and really understand what that meant, because a lot of my healing came from the traumas I had experienced from basically, violence or experiencing traumas from men, or family dysfunctions or socioeconomic kind of traumas. Mm-hmm. I grew up in South Central LA around the LA riots. One of my family members was caught in the LA riots. So there was just a lot of interesting variables of my life that I really had to come to terms with. And so when I was in college, I actually had to drop out because I was still experiencing PTSD from having been held up. This is all part of the background, actually. This all brings us to this point. But I had PTSD from being held at gunpoint at a certain point in my life. And then when I went to college, it was pretty crazy.
I didn't even know that. Thank you for sharing this.
Well, it's part of the journey. It's part of what brings us here. Because now I have a healing center in Redondo Beach. It's called Women's True Healing. And so we specialize in female reproductive wellness. but it comes from my own journey in healing, right? My own journey in recovering from trauma and seeing also how trauma affected my health, my reproductive health, my spiritual, my emotional health, my endocrine health, my mental health, all of that, my physical health. And so really having to kind of use my own life experience as a lot of the, I guess maybe the fodder of this work, you know, because I had to experience healing myself. So that was back in college. And so when I dropped out of college because I had a nervous breakdown in studying philosophy and then having, still having the PTSD from the trauma because it was a break-in into my home, and just kind of understanding the social structures of what was allowing violence to happen, to perpetuate in the world that I lived in, what was allowing violence to perpetuate on women, on children. And in studying philosophy, I was actually able to kind of glimpse some understanding of the social structures that created an environment where there was gender hierarchy or possibilities for violence in our society. So those were really hard issues for me to kind of contend with. You know, I was in my early 20s.
Definitely.
So I dropped out and I decided to study the female human essence. And I'm like, this is nuts. Like, where do I live? I'm on planet Earth. Like, why are these things happening?
Totally.
And you know, I'm tired of...
You went really deep through your own journey and like healing yourself. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I studied a lot of feminine,
God damn it.
just a lot of different avenues.
Okay. Sorry, I think we got interrupted for a moment.
Oh, no.
Here we go.
It's okay. So, and I also studied a lot of healing. So I moved back. I was in San Francisco, so I moved back to Los Angeles. And when I came back to LA, I really wanted to focus on my health because I was also finally introduced to genetically modified foods, that understanding of what our food is like. So when I came back, I really got into the organic food movement. I was a raw vegan for a long time. I started meditating more exclusively. I was, taking more yoga classes. I became like a 3. And then I became a massage therapist. I have a strong background in athletics as well. So when I became a massage therapist, I was really focusing more on the injury rehabilitation and really like the structure and movement. I have the background in dance and in yoga. I also have a martial art background. So as a massage therapist, I specialized in injury rehabilitation and with athletes.
Wow.
And then I was working with a really wonderful physical therapist, Lori Rubenstein, who actually runs the Yoga TRX program at Loyola Marymount. But she was amazing. And through her clinic, I actually started working on high-risk pregnancy women.
Ooh.
So,
wow.
so that was really amazing. And I was using the shiatsu background that I had studied in massage school, and I had studied with another teacher in shiatsu, and using the meridians and the understanding of fascia to really help high-risk pregnant women in helping just facilitate that gestational period for them, right? Because there's so many different ways that high-risk pregnancy can show itself and what a woman has to go through, either a lot of extended bed rest or minimal bed rest, etc. So I specialized in that. And then somewhere along the lines, I had another healing crisis where I had a cervical polyp, and that was blocking my menstrual flow for like 10 days. I was having a menstrual flow for like 10 days at a time and just having weird sensations where I kind of knew something was up. And I had already come across a book called Sastun, and it was about Mayan abdominal therapy and just healing the uterus, healing a woman's womb.
Mm-hmm.
And that book was fascinating. And I had already been trained in that field, but when it came down to me having a healing crisis, a reproductive healing crisis, I freaked out. Like, I already had this background in yoga. I had a background in, in food, health, etc. But when I had a cervical polyp and I had to prepare for surgery, I ate a hamburger. Like, you know, it was like, I don't know what's happening. I want French fries, please, and a milkshake. You know?
In-N-Out burger.
And I mean, I think it was In-N-Out. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where I went, but I had a burger, and
That's funny.
I had the cervical polyp removed, and you know, I recovered fairly easily. But then later on, I was diagnosed with cervical dysplasia, and the doctor required a cervical biopsy. And at that point, I really freaked out. At that point, I was just like, hold up, God, what is happening? What is happening to my body? And with my understanding of energy, because I studied a lot of Eastern philosophy too and Buddhism, I really just felt that there was a vibrational frequency that was going on, that I was not taking care of my body right. I wasn't taking care of my reproductive organs, my sexual organs, my root chakra. And so I devoted myself headfirst into all the knowledge I had about feminine health and feminine wisdom.
Wow.
Because I really just looked up to the heavens, and I just said, I don't want to die. You know, I really felt like, okay, this could be cervical cancer. This could be this could be that. And I still want to do a lot of things. And I really don't want my traumas to be what triggers my illness, you know?
Totally.
So I devoted myself head first. I was using vaginal steaming. I was using meditation. I was using yoga techniques, and I was using an alkaline diet. A lot of different things, and I recovered completely. When I went in for my 3-month checkup, the doctor was like, oh wow, it looks like we've never done a biopsy. It looks like you never had the DNC for the polyp removal. I don't know what you're doing, but it looks great. And you know, just a complete, just like, okay.
A lot of women actually have these cervical biopsies. I believe I had one myself freaking 10 years ago or something. I know my sister-in-law had one. Like, yeah,
they're so routine.
Like, it just takes like an irregular pap smear these days, right, at the gynecologist, and they will do a cervical, you know, biopsy and like cut a little piece of your cervix out. Like, that's kind of intrusive.
It's intrusive, and it leads to more intrusive procedures like a LEAP procedure, where they're actually cutting pieces of the cervix off. There's an excellent book by Dr. Gowie called Your Cervix Just Has a Cold. And it talks about HPV and cervical dysplasia diagnosis as just basically, you know, your immune system kind of fighting off a cervical cold in some ways. So there's a lot of different ways to recover from this. Excuse me, my nose is itching.
I feel you. I'm like,
and that was just
my cold. Not just the cervix.
Allergies, itchy noses, all of that. So that was just my background, and that was back in 2009 when I had the cervical dysplasia diagnosis, which was I don't remember, because sometimes there's different. Like, you can have an HPV diagnosis and then and not have cervical dysplasia. You can have cervical dysplasia and not have HPV. But I kind of just am going to assume that it was HPV.
Which also...
But that was back in 2009.
Right? Yeah, it's like very,
a lot of women have. Oh my gosh.
This is so common.
That is also, you know,
not really talked about ever.
It's not really talked about, and women can have HPV, and they can actually pass HPV on to their children when they give birth. Yes, and children can actually have polyps or nasal or throat polyps from contracting HPV from their mothers via the birth canal.
Didn't even know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, and a lot of it points to, you know, beefing up your immune system, beefing up your microbiome of your vagina and your digestive microbiome. I think, you know, what did they say? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. The more we take care of ourselves, the more we can kind of offset these drastic conditions that we have. So that is my background. A lot of, you know, the impetus, the inception of Women's True Healing comes from my own healing journey and my own healing background, and realizing the necessity to help other women out there.
Yeah,
One of
and
my
also like a really wide background, not just you studied massage therapy. There's like all your personal journey and then all the different fields you tapped into to get your knowledge from food and you know, all different things that came together for you to now say like, okay, this is really what I want to work with, and this is what I want to help women with to find their own healing in their body. So now you have your own practice in California, and you work with women daily, you know, in person. You touch them, you talk to them. Tell me, what are the biggest challenges that women face these days that come to you to see you, that need some true healing?
Honestly, I really think that the biggest challenge women are facing is the challenge of lack of connection with them and their bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That is the biggest challenge, because a lot of women are coming to me without substantial knowledge about how their body works, how their reproductive organs work.
Thank you for saying that. Yes, I always feel that. I'm like, what is going on? Like, why do we not know about our own bodies? But it's because we're not taught. We don't have these elders anymore. We don't have these women's circles anymore. We don't have my mom really never told me about, like, are you going to have your period? You know, this is how it's going to be, right? Like, this is how menstruation works. It's like you hear it somewhere like in a class in school, but it's not really anything that's really taught, right?
It isn't, and it isn't part of our social structure to
Exactly.
talk, you know, which is mind-boggling, because our reproductive organs, our reproductive health is what ensures our existence. You know? So it's like, why wouldn't we talk about how to keep ourselves healthy?
Right.
But it isn't part of our social structure. I have strong opinions about that. You know, I do believe that our social structure is industrial in nature. You know, it's more about labor as opposed to family-centered. It's more industry and commerce-centered than it is family-centered.
Mm-hmm. Especially
So
in America. Yeah, there is very little support for the family.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, women's true healing, it's also the name of it. I named it this way because it's an invitation to define it.
Mm-hmm.
What is true healing? What is, you know, female true healing? What does that actually mean? And I wholeheartedly believe that this is a collective definition, and the definition is evolving, and we would have to define it together.
Right.
Because there's so many components to what true healing is about. But to answer your question again, the number one thing that I see is that women are dealing with a lack of connection with their body.
Wow. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you know, working with pregnant women, I see often that I like to teach women midwifery, right? So that they know how, you know, how their body evolves when they're going through pregnancy. And often they don't really know what's happening, and they don't really, they're kind of afraid of touching their own, oops, are you still here? Looks like we lost each other. Okay.
I forgot where you.
It's recorded again. I'm sorry. I tell you, Spanish internet. It's, you know, not as evolved as we would think it is. But what I want to say is, like, in working with pregnant women, I often encounter that, you know, a lot of women are really afraid of touching their own bodies, touching their own bellies, actually, like, really getting into or touching their own breasts, right? Like, really, or touching their own vaginas, really getting into all of that, and like noticing like the changes in themselves. And it's really interesting to see like how we have lost touch in that, and how we're like so connected to, you know, the technical world. We're so connected to our Facebook and phone and computer and all of this, but we literally lost touch with our own body. That is really, that's really interesting. And it's definitely, in my eyes at least, connected to, you know, the fertility issues that we can see around. So that would be actually my next question is, there are, I believe, a lot of different layers to that issue. And I know when you're treating these things, you have to kind of treat them in a holistic way. It's not just a physical problem often, right? It can be emotional, spiritual,
all different kinds of layers. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because I think that is a very interesting topic that's not very often talked about, especially if we're looking into IVF, fertility treatment, which literally just, talks about the physical component.
Definitely. Well, I have my licensure as a pastoral medical provider. So I have my licensure in pastoral medicine, which is a basically all-encompassing license. I had to look for something that would allow me to practice with all the modalities that I know and that I have, and all the trainings that I've received. And so, yes, it is completely holistic. So when women are coming to me, they are coming to me usually, when they're coming to me for fertility, it's more often than not with a diagnosed unexplained fertility. That's their diagnosis. It's a diagnosed fertility dysfunction, which is kind of a broad term, unexplained fertility, which is basically it's not defined.
Okay.
So sometimes they are receiving IVF treatments, or sometimes they have already received IVF treatments and they haven't had any success. There's somewhere along those lines, or they are not wanting to do IVF treatments. They've just been with their doctor and they've tried, and they're afraid, or it costs too much, or for a variety of reasons. So when they come to me, initially what I'm going to look at is their menstrual history. What's their period like? Which is something that doctors don't ask them about at all. So I ask how long their period is, how often it comes, what the cycle is, and what color is their blood. What is the quality of their blood? So I'm using the menstrual cycle as information to tell me what's going on with their hormones. Are their hormones balanced? Because if their hormones are balanced, then their menstrual cycle will reflect that.
Interesting.
And yeah, and so we're looking for a menstrual, we're looking for a period model. And the period thing is basically, you find it in traditional Chinese medicine, but it's also a biodynamic model, which says that women menstruate every 28 to 29 to 30 days. It follows a lunar cycle. It lasts 3 to 5 days long. It should be nice, bright red blood, minimal cramping. The uterus does double in size during your menstrual cycle, so you're going to feel something when you're on your period.
Right. From usually like being the size of your hand to about being double size, right? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm also looking at how much cramping they have, their lifestyle, how active they are during their periods, their history of hormonal birth control. If
That's a big topic. When I think about myself, I took like hormonal birth control for 19 years. Imagine that. What the fuck?
But you're doing pretty good, right? Because
it happened anyway.
You got a bun in the oven. Well, some women will react to birth control a lot differently. Some women actually won't be affected by birth control and will actually be able to bounce right back into their menstrual cycle pretty easily. Right. Some women are affected by hormonal birth control. We don't know who those women are going to be. You know, you won't know who you are until you're actually on birth control, until you come off of it. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at hormonal birth control history. I'm also looking at what their period was like when they first got it. I'm looking at what their diet was like when they were children, when they were teens. And I'm also looking if there have been extended periods of chronic stress and anxiety.
Ooh. See, things that a doctor would never ask you about, right? That's very interesting.
Yeah. I'm a yogi, so I'm like, what's going on? Totally. I guess. I don't know. And I'm just teasing by saying that, but that's the perspective I have. So I want to know everything that's going on. Fertility is an amazing thing. It's an all-encompassing thing. To have children is to actually create the future, right? Because these children are that next iteration of our humanness. And so it's a really beautiful and amazing thing. And so when women are coming to me and they're having these issues of unexplained infertility, it's so demoralizing for them at times. It's so heartbreaking. They're coming with history, miscarriages, maybe, stillbirths, really soul-shattering situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to be able to help them as best as I can. So I want to be able to unpack all of their information, and let's see if we can find something that we can address, you know? So if all this information is out there, then I'm just basically, let's see what we can nourish and nurture, clean up here, and let's see if when we put it all back together, your menstrual cycle is nice and healthy, and let's see if it works.
Wow. So are you including body work in that as well?
Yes. I do abdominal therapy. So I do, I'm looking at the position of the uterus. I'm also looking at abdominal organ placement. Your digestive health is going to affect your reproductive health very, very intimately.
Wow. So what does that mean? The more you poop, the better it is?
Well, the more you poop, well, if it's healthy poop, I mean, if you have chronic diarrhea, it's like, whoa, hold on, what's going on? But basically, your uterus is at the base of your peritoneal sac. Okay, so the bladder is not included in the peritoneal sac. The bladder rests on top of the pubic bone, and then the uterus
rests for me because I gotta pee every fucking 5 minutes.
Well, you know, because it's just growing.
Right.
So the uterus, the fundus of the uterus, is encompassed in the peritoneal sac, and then the peritoneal sac has all the other digestive organs. The small intestines are on top of the uterus, and then the large intestine goes on top of the small intestines, and then you have your liver and your stomach, your pancreas, your spleen, your gallbladder. But if there's stuff going on with the small intestine and the large intestine, like chronic gas, chronic bloating,
totally.
you're eating 3 meals a day and only going to the bathroom once, all of that stuff is just compressing on top of the uterus.
Or there's
the
some
uterus,
people that literally just go twice a week.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
How's
And it.
Oh no.
Girl, I'm so sorry about that. Can you see me? Sorry.
I think it's my internet, so I'm really.
Oh no. There was a call that came in.
Okay, perfect. Very good.
It doesn't work out very well in systematized folk medicine, like traditional Chinese medicine, like Ayurvedic medicine. Most traditional medicines around the world, you're going to want to have a healthy digestive system. You're going to be wanting to release what you take in.
Right.
Chronic constipation for women can also affect hormonal balance because of our problem with xenoestrogens and estrogens, the whole situation of estrogen dominance. So we have an overabundance of xenoestrogens in the environment because of the petrochemicals. Xenoestrogens,
all the plastic that we're
all the plastic.
Okay.
So estrogen, from my understanding, is only excreted through the bowels. When there is constipation, the mucus lining of the small intestines and the large intestines, will reabsorb the water in the stool, thereby reabsorbing. Sorry about that. That's my phone. Thereby reabsorbing estrogen, which could be xenoestrogens, which can wreak havoc on the menstrual cycle. But first, the physical aspect of it is that there's weight. If there's gas, all of that weighs and presses on the uterus.
Totally. So it can't ever oh, this sucks.
Oh no, I've lost you again.
No, you're here. I can still hear you. You're still here.
Yoga.
I can still hear you. You're frozen though. Hello.
I'll wait.
Back on now.
Okay.
For everyone listening, sorry about this. We are back.
Whoops.
I'll summarize real quick what you just said because it was really good and I hope nobody lost something. So you said there's a lot of, even in the physical realm, there's a bunch of different components, and the most important, or one of the most important ones, is just like the physical weight of the bowels that presses onto the uterus if your digestive system is just out of balance. And that can be out of balance because of stress or nutrition, and a lot of way too much estrogen in our diet that comes through all the plastic that we're consuming. And we're not consuming plastic, but like everything is wrapped in plastic and Tupperware and plastic bottles, how I have here too. I'm trying to get everything into class. But yes, we're surrounded by plastic, BPA, estrogen overload in our digestive system. Is that right? Did I summarize that correctly?
That's right. And just to add to that, the other thing that causes that compression or excess, extra weight on the uterus is our chronic sitting. So most people,
totally. That's why I tell pregnant mamas all the time, like, go and walk miles and miles every day, because we need to have that strength of that pelvic floor and the strength of the uterus, and then also not the fucking sitting all day long, for sure.
But Ilka, girlfriend, people in the United States have been sitting since kindergarten.
I know. Totally.
Years of sitting. And then you have all these years of sitting. And then a lot of times, like when girls, because they're still girls when they get their periods, just because you get a period does not make you a woman, does not make you an adult. You're still a little girl. Right. So when little girls are getting their period from the age of 11 to 14, some of these little girls are having very painful periods, or periods that are very chocolate color or brown in nature and cramps, because of this chronic sitting and because of the diet that they're being fed. And so it's all these things. So when women come in, it's like we're trying to do this lifestyle of education, this education, right? In a short amount of time. Totally. To get them healthy.
20, we're actually years of shit going wrong, and then you'll try to fix it in like a few sessions or something, right? Like giving people all these ideas of changing. But
sometimes it works.
Go walk and don't sit all day. Don't wrap everything in plastic. Make sure you have a good digestion, that you can go and release your bowels a few times a day, and all of these things to really support your reproductive health. Wow. Yeah. Please tell me more.
Exactly. So, I generally put them on a plan. A lot of times women are like, I need to get pregnant now. So I'm just like, okay, let's look at all these things. And then I always tell them, it's up to you. If you want to wait 3 to 6 months, that will give you an optimal amount of time to take care of your diet, do your self-care massages, address your menstrual cycle, live a womb wellness lifestyle for these next 3 months to prepare yourself.
A womb wellness lifestyle. I like that.
Because Ilka, you know, it's not just about getting pregnant. It's not just about carrying the baby. It's also about the postpartum period.
Oh my God, yes.
Yes. And so these practices of keeping our reproductive health healthy, this practice actually equals our postpartum care practices.
And postpartum meaning for the rest of your life.
Exactly. Postpartum meaning for the rest of your life, but also that immediate time where, people are calling the 4th trimester, or the golden month, or the sacred window. The golden month, I think, is Chinese medicine. The sacred window is Ayurvedic medicine. Right. But it's these practices that are actually lifelong wellness.
Right. Wow. Okay, so that's like the physical component. Can you tell me a little bit about the, emotional component, the maybe spiritual, mental, psychological component that comes in?
Mental, emotional, and psychological, that's really, really interesting, because if there's women who have had extended, prolonged periods of anxiety or stress, which is hard to find someone that has not, how that affects our central nervous system is basically through putting us in a state of chronic fight or flight. Mm-hmm. It's a chronic fight or flight response, which, well, actually, I take it a little bit back to the physical. chronic fight or flight is always going to engage the psoas. So in the yoga community and some bodyworks communities, they're understanding the psoas in a lot of different dimensions, a lot of different ways.
Which is like this muscle that goes right here.
Yes, the psoas muscle. Yeah. A lot of
just
some people
ones that don't know that. Am I right with this? It's the one that helps us all also to sit cross-legged.
That is a sartorius muscle, which is the talar muscle. The psoas muscle is basically attaches right behind the belly button, and it goes like a triangle from the belly button down into the top of the thigh bone, the femur.
Right.
So it's the only muscle really that actually connects the torso to the legs. It's the muscle that allows our knee to come up, and it's the muscle that allows our torso to come down towards our knees. Mm-hmm. So basically, if we're in a fight or flight response, when it means to fight, you're actually going to crouch. When it means to fly, to flee, you're actually going to start running. Right. The psoas muscle is the one that's going to be constantly engaged. It is the one that engages primarily. Wow. Because it's going to pull you down, it's going to prepare you, or put you in a little ball.
So we're constantly being like pulled together type of thing.
Yes. And also there's microcontractions. So the microcontractions are just kind of there, and they're pulling ever so slightly on the vertebrae of the spine, and it's pulling ever so slightly on the fascia of the spine, which also affects the sacrum. The uterus is attached to the sacrum by the sacrouterine ligament. And so that microcontraction of the psoas muscle can also affect the amount of space that the abdomen has for circulation, for lymphatic circulation, and for nerve relay.
Wow. My mind's blown already. I'm like, oh god, this is crazy. All the stuff that we don't know, but you do. That's why I got you on here today.
So that's just the psoas. That's just how the central nervous system affects the psoas. But then the central nervous system, when it's reacting to stress, it's also going to be flooding our bloodstream with cortisol and with adrenaline, and also suppressing digestive and reproductive function. Totally. Because in fight or flight, those are secondary biological functions. In fight or flight, the primary function is survival. So under chronic stress, under chronic anxiety, the body is constantly being put into a survival mode. So helping women get pregnant with diagnosis of unexplained infertility is actually getting them to deeply, deeply relax. But what that means is also allowing them to feel a deep sense of safety. That's hard work. That is very hard work in some cases. It's a lot of hard work, I think, for our global society as well, to just actually get us to feel a sense of safety and a sense of trust and a sense of security. And nothing allows for fertility, for wellness, for juiciness than when you feel safe and when you feel good and when you feel trusting and you're flowing, right? Absolutely. So there's a lot of factors when it comes to that. Now, there's ways to address that dietarily and with supplements and things like that. But what affects that what's going to affect that the most is the sense of security and the sense of wellness and safety.
Wow. So is that something that you would also bring up with a partner, for example? Because like something that I personally felt getting pregnant was like, I just felt really freaking safe with my partner. I just felt like he could hold me through me having all kinds of emotions. I'm a very emotional person, so it's like having someone that has the strength to hold me, someone that I can feel safe with, right? And that gives me that sense of security, and also finding that sense of security in myself, obviously. But like, I'm interested if that is something that you would address with the partner as well, because I believe that there might be like some connection there as well, you know?
Totally. Sometimes, but not always. Most of the time when women come in, I make sure that their partners have also been checked. Right. Because if there's histories of miscarriages, I also want them to feel like they're not just because it's them, that they're not broken, to make sure that their partner is getting checked out as well, morphology, mobility, and the count is really important. But sometimes, and because I have a background in spiritual healing, and I have that pastoral medical license, I will be very direct when I can sense that there's an issue with the relationship, when they're telling me things that don't sound like they're allowing themselves to be safe, and I just kind of ask them, then, I ask them, do you feel very confident in this relationship? That doesn't happen all the time. Most of the time women come through with the full support of their partners.
Okay.
Very rarely do I have someone come through that is in an unsupportive relationship.
Okay. So it's more the security they feel inside themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. That is so important. That is so important. Yes, we need a supportive partner. We need a supportive community.
Right.
We need a supportive family, because, once you have your baby, you need the support of your community to actually be taken care of in the postpartum period.
True.
To help with raising children. So that is one thing. But the individual sense of security and sense of safety is utmost.
Wow. Okay, so you made it very clear to me how this now is all tied together. The physical part, the anxiety, the safety, how it all, like the emotional part actually affects the physical part, and that physical part then, affects your reproductive health. So, wow, I'm in many ways blown away. So why I wanted to get you so desperately on this call, and I'm so happy to have you here, was because I got really inspired when I saw a post of yours that said, I am so happy I helped X amount of women this year to get pregnant. And I was like, wow. After I, just had a few of my own friends and family go through fertility issues and all these, this emotional baggage that comes with it. And then I saw this, and I know you personally, and I was like, holy moly, like how is she doing that? So I was really interested in that. And I would like to know, tell me a little bit more about your secret of doing this. So you told me you're already addressing all these things. You're doing body work with them. You're getting them on a plan. You're asking them some spiritual questions. Is there anything else that you do that, that is kind of like helps them to get on this path of, reproductive health?
There's key supplements that I do recommend. A lot of us are nutrient deficient, especially in the United States. I think it has been proven that our foods don't have the same nutrient content that they used to. There's a lot of soil erosion. So as much as I wish it wasn't like this, but we do need supplementation. And sometimes, it's just even asking women, are they taking prenatals? So it's like, no, I'm not taking a prenatal. It's like, okay, you got to start taking a prenatal. Like, it's so important. But, iodine and vitamin A, magnesium, those are super important to be taking. There are some times that
could we theoretically get this all through our diet? So check this out. Okay, so this is just my food bowl. I'm juicing every day, lots of kale and spinach and parsley and all kinds of things, like literally half a liter of green juice in the morning. Is that good for us, or do you say like you still need some supplements because all the stuff? I don't know. Here in Spain, we might have better soils, hopefully. But
no. I think
there is enough. You need to have some supplements to be.
Well, only if only if there's somebody's coming in and there's like unexplained infertility, and depending on the intake, depending on their dietary history and their digestive history. So it's all individual, right?
Okay.
A healthy woman who hasn't had an issue getting pregnant, they're probably fine. So when there's women that come in that are having these issues, then I'm like, I'm crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's. Let's try these
Right.
supplements. So that's how I see it. But yes, if your diet is good, I mean, a lot of times women come in and they're only drinking 3 glasses of water a day, and they're skipping breakfast, and they're having like a small dinner. So it's like, okay, so
plates and half over. Totally. You know, honestly, like I see that too a lot, that like diet, right, in general, like being very lean and not having any body fat, and like, you know, I believe that that might contribute as well, because like there needs to be something there to like make a baby, you know. That's why we're gaining weight as we're getting pregnant. And if you're not having any nutrients, or you don't have any, you know, substance in your diet, then it's really hard to build another body.
It's really hard to build another body. Women need to be eating 3 meals a day. There's a doctor in Australia. Her name is Dr. Laura Brydon. She wrote a book, The Period Repair Manual. And I sat in on one of her talks, and what she was saying was really interesting. Also, another colleague of mine, Holly Grosval. Oh my God, I'm sorry if I misspelled your name, but she wrote Sweetening the Pill, How We Got Hooked on Hormonal Birth Control.
Uh-huh.
They were talking about how a lot of diets that we see now, like paleo, intermittent fasting, ketogenic diets, things like that, the research has mostly been done on men.
Totally.
So some of these effects and benefits aren't always necessarily translatable to women. Because the diets have not necessarily been tested exclusively on women. They've been tested on men, and they don't count in the variables of our menstrual cycle, of the hormone functioning of our menstrual cycle. Wow. So as women, we actually really need to see diet in a different way. We need to see it as it needs to nourish us.
Yes.
So, I mean, going back, like as far as secrets, I mean, you know, I do a lot of research on the endocrine functioning, but I mean, if I could say if there's any one secret, is actually connecting to the uterus, right? Connecting to our womb, and actually like loving ourselves, like loving the female body, loving the female ovaries, loving your female uterus, loving your female fallopian tubes, the cervix, the vagina, doing whatever you need to do to take care of it, to love it, to nourish it. I think that really is the secret. A lot of times women come in and they hate their bodies because their menstrual cycles have given them so much pain and so much cramps. Women have all kinds of issues when it comes to their body. Right. And I think the real secret is just being able to love the female body. Yeah. I think would change a lot. And then if we love it, and if we understand that the female body is important, how is it not important? Right. Then collectively we would all be moving towards care for not just the female body, but for the male body and for all the genders in between. But we would be caring for ourselves. And I think that's one thing that I work with women, is actually having them believe that they are important of their care. Having them believe like it matters that you eat breakfast. Yes. It matters that you don't run out of the house without eating. It matters that you're drinking water in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. All of this matters. It's important for you, not just for getting pregnant. Yeah. And if you are fully nourished, then it puts you in a better place to get pregnant.
You know, that's such a wonderful attitude too, because, you know, the biggest thing that I've learned so far through my own pregnancy is literally self-care. I personally decided through being on the road, basically traveling for the last 9 months or something, that I'm not seeing any doctor, or I'm not getting any prenatal care from a midwife. Now I've been a birth worker myself for the last 10 years, so I might have some background there, but like what I realized is I don't really need an ultrasound. I don't need to really have a genetic testing. What I need is walking every single day. What I need is juicing in the morning. What I need is love making with my partner. And what I need is cuddling. What I need is naps in the afternoon. What I need is, really connecting with my baby and being aware of what is going on in my body. So I think what we've forgotten a little bit is, in outsourcing to hospitals or doctors or other care providers in a way, is that self-care, that you're talking about. And I really like what you said about, like, really loving your reproductive organs. And I feel like a lot of women are not even like aware that they have all these reproductive organs inside of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just
Mm-hmm.
like putting your hands on it and like reconnecting to your own womb, and really meditating on it and sending it some love is maybe the first step of all that. I like that a lot.
Oh, totally, totally. Sometimes, like I said, with unexplained infertility, sometimes it will point to trauma and things like that. So helping support the central nervous system in releasing itself from trauma is also another secret.
Right.
Ensuring that there's proper sleep. The other big thing is the function of melatonin, is the functioning of the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus, and the whole HPA, which is the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, if all of that is functioning properly. And I look at that also with sleep and also with blue light, if there's excessive blue light exposure. So cell phones, ambient lighting, we're inundated with blue light, which is affecting our melatonin function. That one's interesting. There's anthropological studies that study tribes and have studied how women have menstruated in previous times. And there's some studies that have shown that women used to menstruate with the new moon and ovulate with the full moon. And there's some studies that have shown vice versa. Now, this is my theory. This is kind of a little bit far out theory.
Please, but I do it all. And actually, you know what? Michel Audant, I don't know if you know him, but he's like an amazing like birth researcher and like.
Oh yes, right? Yes, I've heard of him.
He actually I just saw a talk with him. I think it was Better Birth Summit or something, where he talked about exactly that, how this blue light, fluorescent light. Oh God, I don't know if I say that right. How it also impacts women going through birth. So
oh wow,
there must be a connection with that. So please tell us your theory.
Well, I believe that we ovulated with the full moon, and the reason why was because, and actually, I believe that the moon was part of our evolutionary process as humans, and that the moon was actually able to, the full moon, the moon reflecting the light of the sun, allowed for our pituitary gland to ignite the gonadotropin growth hormone to trigger the luteal phase, to trigger ovulation. The full moon, the light of the full moon entering through our retinas actually allowed for ovulation to be triggered. So we weren't affected by blue light. We weren't affected by ambient lighting. It was just that brightness at that period of time in the sky that allowed for our pituitary to be triggered into actually allowing for ovulation. So that's just a theory that I have. Yeah. But so I am looking also at sleep and, how much exposure they're having to their cell phones, if they need to be supported with, with the melatonin, things like that.
Wow, Marcia, it seems like this whole topic is literally not an easy one. It's like it takes an expert to look at. It takes, someone that has a vast variety of background knowledge like you do to look at all these different things that can affect it. It's definitely not like one thing, and this is, if you fix that, everything is going to be good. It can have so many different sources and so many different ways of being healed. So I'm really happy to have gotten all that info from you. I do want to, I know, we said we're going to be on for an hour. So I wanted to ask you two more questions. The first one is, if you, and I really hope you're going to stay with us for a very, very long time, but if you would take off from this planet tomorrow, and you have one last message to share with women, with people in general, or with women specifically, what would it be? what would your message be?
Oh man, I think about that actually. I'm like, what am I going to leave behind? Oh gosh, Ilka, I don't know. I have such an immense love for life. If I had a message, I think it's it's to believe and to know as much as you can, to understand your body, to understand what your relationship is to life, to know, and to believe. I think that's kind of been my own driving force throughout my healing journey, and to me coming here is just this belief that we are all capable of a good life.
Yes.
It's not like a life devoid of conflict. It's not a life devoid of conflict,
Suffering.
whatever.
Yeah.
Or suffering. I mean, and there is suffering in life. It's just part of how we are, but
it's part of it. Yes.
It's part of it. But I do believe that we are all capable of a good life. I do believe that.
I love that. That is a wonderful, that's a wonderful message to share for sure. But yeah, if people say, hell yeah, this woman is amazing, I want to learn everything from her. How can we reach you? How can people, in California find you? Is there any way you have, Skype sessions, or for anyone that's anywhere else in the world that says, this is exactly the woman I want to work with and I want to pick her brain about everything? Tell me, how can we get in touch with you?
Definitely. So Women's True Healing is found anywhere you can. That's our website, womenstruehealing.com. We're on Women's True Healing Facebook. We're on Women's True Healing Instagram. We're on Meetup. So you can find us through all those mediums. We're on Yelp. Women's True Healing is on Yelp.
And you're in Southern California, right?
I'm in Southern California. I'm in Redondo Beach.
Okay.
I'm in the South Bay area. And yeah, I am available for Skype. Right now, it's amazing. The center is growing and we're adding more practitioners. So we have a really amazing team that's coming on board. So we'll have more offerings on the website and more clarity. And I want to have a lot of resources available for people. So that's all coming, but I'm easily accessible through our phone, 310-514-6009, email, the website, all of our social media contacts. They can reach out.
Wow, wonderful. Yes, I hope women will take advantage of this, because I believe your work is not just needed, but also for anyone that goes through their own healing process and needs some guidance there, you could be a really wonderful guide. Thank you so much for taking your time today, for sharing all your wisdom, for sharing all, your personal journey, for being so open and honest and transparent. And this was a lot of fun. I learned a lot through this, and I hope a lot of other women will learn tons and tons from this as well.
Awesome. Ilka, thank you so much for reaching out. It was just awesome to hear from you, and I'm glad we finally found a time to sync up. So this has been great. I hope everybody enjoyed this hour.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Thank you, ladies, for joining us to this great interview. If you enjoyed this, please follow the Liberated Birth Movement on Facebook or subscribe to our channel. If you have more questions how to apply these ideas to your pregnancy and birth, schedule a call and we'll get you clear on what you want and how to get it. meetme.so/liberatedbirth. meetme.so/liberatedbirth. Always remember, birth belongs to women.